Hi there! I'm Anna May, and all my life people have been telling me how pretty I am. I'm tall, skinny, with double D's. My hair's a natural light blonde, and I have green eyes with dark brown flecks. I also got the Kim Kardashian hourglass figure, and guys were always hitting on me and telling me how hot my body is. I know, you already hate me. And that was the problem. People assumed that because I'm pretty, I've got it made, but they couldn't be more wrong. When I was at school, nobody wanted to hang out with me except for guys who just wanted to hook up. I got bullied really badly because everyone said I thought I was better than them. I didn't. It wasn't my fault I had perfect skin and knew how to dress well. I remember one time when I was invited to a party, I was so excited because normally I never got asked to go anywhere. This guy, Marius, was there. He was dating the head cheerleader, Brittany. But when he saw me walk in, he came over to talk to me. He asked if I wanted a drink. I said yes, so he got me some punch, then asked me to go upstairs with him. One thing led to another, and we started making out. It wasn't my fault. He came on to me. It was the first time I'd ever been kissed, and I was lost in the moment. But then, Brittany walked in on us. She screamed and flew at me, trying to scratch my eyes out. She pulled out a huge piece of my hair, and Marius had to pull her off me. After that, school was the worst. People called me a and other nasty names, and it didn't stop when school was done. People sent me hundreds of messages on social media about how horrible I was, telling me to go away and die. It got so bad, I thought about dropping school. I told my parents what was happening, and they decided to homeschool me. Things got better for a while, but I was so lonely. All I wanted was a friend. Just one. Was that too much to ask? I managed to get my high school diploma, and I went to college to study English Lit. I worked really hard to get a 3.8 GPA, but then the bullying started again. I heard rumors I was sleeping with my professor to get good grades. I mean, ew! He was like 60, fat, and bald. Why would I sleep with an old man? I didn't think anyone would listen to the rumors, but I got called into a meeting with the dean. When I walked into his office, I was stunned to see the dean sitting there with my professor next to him. "I hear you've been making some serious claims," said the dean. "Claims which could cause big trouble for Professor Bryce." I couldn't believe it. Someone had told the dean, and now I was in trouble. I was warned that if I continued to lie about having an affair with Professor Bryce, I would be expelled. They didn't believe me when I told them it wasn't me who was spreading rumors. I didn't want to wait around to be expelled. I knew the lies weren't going to stop, so I switched colleges to finish my course. My new school wasn't as good, but I didn't care. I got to graduate without anyone thinking I'd slept with my professor to get an A. It was really hard to get a job after graduation. I tried not to look too pretty when I went for interviews, but the moment I walked into a company and met up with a woman, I knew I wouldn't get hired. They all felt threatened by me. At last, I managed to get a job with a PR company. My boss was a really nice man, and I thought it would be the start of an amazing career. When you work in PR, appearances count. Everything we did was about making our clients look good, and it was important to have the right image for our clients. I was asked to organize a launch party for one of our clients. When it came to the big event, I thought a lot about what to wear, and in the end, I decided on a simple, short black dress. I thought I looked really professional. Nobody could have a problem with a classic black number, right? But the morning after the party, I overheard some of my female colleagues talking. They said, "Did you see what Anna May was wearing? It was so inappropriate. That dress was way too short." Short? It came down to my knees. I thought about telling my boss, but I didn't want to make a fuss. I really wish I had now. A few days later, when I went to work, I was called into a meeting with my boss. I knew I was in trouble the moment I saw his face. He looked so angry. "Do you want to explain this?" he asked, bringing out a couple of half-empty bottles of vodka. I had no idea what he was talking about until he explained that some of my colleagues had complained I was drinking on the job. He also told me there had been a number of complaints about the quality of my work. He showed me a couple of press releases I'd worked on. They were full of mistakes. They weren't the press releases I'd written. I said, "None of this is my fault. Someone's doing this on purpose to get me in trouble." My boss didn't believe me. I got fired. It was even harder to find another job after that. No one wants to hire someone who got fired from their first job. In the end, I decided to qualify as a realtor. I figured maybe I could use my good looks to sell houses. That's how I met my fiancé, Ben. He was my first real boyfriend. Men were always too intimidated by me to ask me out. They assumed I would say no, so they didn't bother hitting on me. We'd only been dating 6 months when Ben asked me to marry him. He wasn't the best-looking guy around, and he wasn't very good in bed, but he was so sweet, and he really cared about me. I felt like he was my only chance at love. When we told his parents, I thought they'd be happy for us. But his mom said to Ben, "She's and she'll cheat on you. If you marry her, don't expect me to come to the wedding." But Ben didn't care. He told her he was going to marry me, no matter what. I started planning our wedding. Ben's family was rich, and he told me I could spend whatever I wanted on my dress. I ordered a gorgeous designer gown, which showed off my figure. It was really tasteful. I booked the local country club for our wedding and ordered an amazing cake. Our wedding was going to be awesome. But then I got a text from Ben. He said he was sorry, but he was canceling the wedding. His parents had said they'd cut his inheritance if he stayed with me. He said he couldn't give me the life I deserved, so it was better for me to find someone else. How could I find someone else when it had taken me a lifetime to find Ben? I couldn't let it end like that. I knew if I could only talk to Ben, I could change his mind. I tried to call him, but he wouldn't pick up his phone, so I went over to his house. I banged on the door, screaming his name, but he wouldn't answer. At last, his sister opened the door and told me to go away. She said Ben never wanted to see me again. I was crushed. My whole life, my good looks had caused me nothing but trouble. On the drive home, I was so distracted that I didn't even pay any attention to the road. Suddenly, I noticed that my car is about to hit a wall, gonna hit a wall. With a quick reaction, I slammed on the gas instead of brakes and drove straight at a wall. There was a loud bang, and my face exploded in pain. When I woke up, I was in agony. I reached up to touch my face and realized it was wrapped in bandages. The doctors told me I had severe scarring and I would need plastic surgery. I told them not to bother. Maybe this was for the better. They made me talk to a psychiatrist. She tried to change my mind, but I knew there was no way I was getting surgery. I was sick of being just a pretty face. When they took my bandages off, they tried to stop me looking in the mirror right away. They said I should give myself some time to prepare, but I wanted to know what I looked like. Wow. Nobody would think I was beautiful now. I had deep cuts all over my face. I looked like a freak. When I left the hospital, I thought things would be better now I wasn't pretty. If only. I tried to go back to work, but nobody wanted to buy a house from someone who looked like me. The first time I showed a family round a property, their little girl screamed when she saw me and hid behind her mom. She said she didn't want to go near the scary lady. After a month of no sales, I quit my job and started looking for other work, but no one would hire me. No one would say it to my face, but I knew it was because of how I looked. I decided to save up for plastic surgery. I already had a lot of medical bills to pay off, though, so I needed to make a lot of money and fast. I had to find a job where my looks didn't matter but paid good money. In the end, I decided to work for a hotline for dirty calls. My clients didn't know what I looked like because I used a fake photo on my profile. I discovered I was really good at talking dirty. A lot of the time, I didn't even have to say much. All I had to do was moan, and my clients loved it. There was one guy, Zeke, who called me every day. I knew the hotline was really expensive, so he had to have a lot of money to make all those calls. He started asking me to meet up with him. Of course, I said no. It wasn't just that I knew my looks would be a problem. It was too dangerous to meet clients. But Zeke kept asking. He said he knew I wouldn't look like my profile picture, but he didn't care. He said he could tell I had a beautiful soul. At last, I said yes. Don't judge me. I was lonely. I didn't have any friends, and the only guy who'd ever wanted to date me was Ben. I was so nervous before my first date with Zeke. I tried on a ton of outfits before I decided to wear something which showed my cleavage. My face might be ruined, but I still had an amazing body. We agreed to meet in a bar. I knew who Zeke was right away because he was wearing a red rose pinned to his shirt. He was short and he wore glasses, but that was okay. He made me laugh and he didn't mind about my face. Zeke and I started dating. He let me keep working on the hotline and he was still my best customer. But then Zeke started talking about getting me to do other adult work. He said my scars could make us a lot of money with the right audience. There was no way I was going to do that. So I dumped him. So now I'm still single and saving for my surgery. Maybe one day I'll be happy with the way I look. I hope you liked my story. Remember to
My name's Kelsey, and you seriously won't believe what happened to me. One minute, I was living a normal teenage existence. The next minute, my life was flipped upside down, and I had to deal with something so humiliating that even telling you about it makes my skin crawl. Sometimes we find out people aren't who we thought they were. And I was seriously in for a shock when I discovered the truth about this new friend of mine. It all started last summer. All my friends had summer jobs, and I didn't want to be the only one sitting at home doing nothing. It's not like I really needed the money because my family is pretty wealthy, but I was bored. So I applied for a job at a small cafe in town. It was like the cool spot where all the hip people hung out, kind of like a student vibe. When I found out I got the job, I was so excited. The girl who interviewed me was slightly older than me, definitely a student, and she said she really liked my surname and that it was pretty unique. She had the most gorgeous long black hair and tons of cool piercings, and even a tattoo. She honestly just looked like she belonged on the cover of some awesome rock and roll magazine. And I was like, okay, when I'm older, I want to be just like her. Her name was Rosie, and we somehow always seemed to be on the same shift. The more I got to know her, the more I realized how much we had in common. She liked all the same bands as me, and she even played the guitar too. She was studying English literature at one of the local colleges, and I told her that's what I was wanting to study too, and that my dad was a professor in English lit as well, and maybe she knew him? But she said she'd never heard of him, and then changed the subject. At work, we'd always have our lunch break together, and I used to bring us cookies and other sweet treats to share. Sometimes, we'd go to the park and just lie there and chill. It was so nice. I started getting more and more excited about work, and I quickly realized how much I liked this girl. Rosie was everything I wanted to be, and yet I think there was something more. I was only 15, so I couldn't really understand what I was feeling, but I started to like her. I never thought I could be attracted to a girl before, but she had this air about her that just made me feel excited. Like butterflies in my stomach excited. I realized this was the first girl I'd ever had a crush on, and it was such a new feeling for me. One day, when we were lying in the park, she rolled right over to me and propped herself up on her elbow and said, "You know what, Kelsey? You're pretty awesome." My heart was thudding so much I was terrified she'd hear it, and I realized how much I liked her. I felt so shy, I didn't even reply. I just laughed and told her we better get back to work. That whole shift, I kept watching her, and eventually plucked up the courage to ask her if she wanted to hang out after work. I told her my parents were out, and maybe she could bring her guitar and we could jam. She was keen and said she'd drive over later that night. As I cycled home, I decided tonight would be the night I'd tell her I liked her. Wait, was this a date? Was she coming over as a friend or because she liked me in that way too? I was seriously overthinking it all. Either way, we'd have a nice night. Rosie arrived not long after I got home, and I decided to give her a tour of our house. She couldn't believe how big our place was. I swear her jaw literally dropped when I showed her our cinema room. It was so bizarre because it seemed like she knew where to go. I didn't even have to show her where her bathroom was. She asked if we could watch a movie instead of playing guitar, and I said sure. I told her to make herself at home while I went to make us some popcorn. As I waited for the popcorn to finish being made, I noticed Rosie was staring at our family photos in the hall. She reached out and touched one of the photos, and I saw her smiling. My heart fluttered. She was seriously into me. Maybe we'd even kiss in the cinema? That thought made me nervous, and I hoped I wasn't sweating. I always sweat when I'm nervous. She came into the kitchen and said, "No wonder you're so pretty, Kelsey. Your parents are seriously attractive." I just laughed, but could feel myself blushing. We headed to the cinema room, and halfway through the movie, I heard my parents coming home. I was pretty bummed because Rosie hadn't even made a move, not even to hold my hand. I tried the whole yawn and stretch thing to put my arm around her, but she didn't even notice. Anyway, I thought maybe we should pause the movie and she could come meet my parents. I suggested this to her and she completely froze. She suddenly made up an excuse about needing to get home quickly, and was there maybe a way she could sneak out? She said she felt awkward around parents because they always judged her piercings and she didn't want them thinking she was a bad influence on me. I was kind of confused, but told her she could take the back door and they wouldn't notice. Afterwards, I felt kind of weird. Maybe she didn't like me after all. Or maybe she was trying to protect me in case my parents weren't okay with me liking girls. She'd been in such a rush that she left her guitar. I took it through to the kitchen and left it on one of the chairs and said goodnight to my parents. The next morning when I came downstairs, my dad was holding the guitar and he had this odd expression on his face. When he spotted me standing there, he quickly put it down and in an angry tone he said, "Kelsey, whose guitar is this? Why is it here?" I couldn't understand why he was angry. I said it was my friend's from work and that she left it here by accident. Then he got even angrier and said why did I think it was okay to have a friend over from work without asking? Then he demanded to know who this friend was. I told him to chill out, and then I just grabbed the guitar and headed for the door. Who did he think he was? Shouting at me for having a friend. I was so anxious on the way to work. What if my dad just had a sense that I was into this girl? Rosie was her usual cheery self at work and apologized for rushing off the night before. I asked her if she wanted to hang out again sometime and maybe we could play our guitars for real this time. She said she'd like that and that she was free that afternoon. I knew my dad would be at work, so I told her to come over. That shift went by so slowly. At lunch, Rosie went out to meet a friend, and so I had to eat lunch by myself. We cycled back to my place together and I noticed my mom was at home. I asked Rosie if that was okay with her, and she seemed a bit uncomfortable but said it was okay. My mom was the sweetest woman, so she had nothing to worry about. When my mom met Rosie, she said, "Oh, so nice to meet you, Rosie. You must be Kelsey's new friend that she's been talking about so much. Such a pleasure to meet you." I was not prepared for the way Rosie responded. She had this strange look on her face. It was the first time I ever saw her look cold. She just looked at my mom and said, "Oh, you look so different in real life. Those photos of you in the hall must be pretty old, right?" Then she just walked away and headed for my room. I was mortified. My mom tried to shake it off and feigned a little smile. I knew I'd be in deep trouble later. Both my mom and my dad wouldn't want me hanging out with this kind of girl. When I got to my room, I didn't say anything. I thought she might at least apologize, but she was just looking at my bookshelves and didn't seem to care. I tried not to let it bother me. After all, she'd said she gets awkward around parents. I put on some music and lay down on my bed. "Where's your guitar, Rosie?" I suddenly asked her. I realized she hadn't brought it with her. Her eyes widened a bit, and then she stuttered and said, I actually left it at my friend's at lunchtime. Sorry, Kelsey." I tried not to get annoyed, but I felt kind of jealous that she had this other friend. "Why don't you call your friend and ask if we can swing over and pick it up?" She said her friend was working and wouldn't reply to his messages whilst at work. My heart sank. I knew it. This friend was probably her boyfriend. What had I been thinking? She wasn't into me at all. Suddenly, I felt kind of sick and didn't want her in my room. "Rosie, sorry, I'm actually not feeling very well. Can we take a rain check and hang out tomorrow instead?" She looked a bit surprised, but said sure, and that if I wasn't feeling well tomorrow, I could call in sick and she'd cover for me. I cried a bit when she left, and then I felt stupid for crying and told myself to get over it, and I took a nap instead. When I woke up, I was feeling hungry, so I headed downstairs to make a snack. My dad had just arrived home, and he was unpacking groceries from the car. I went to help him, but he told me it was okay, he'd manage. I still went to help him, and as I pulled out the last grocery bag, I froze. You won't believe what was hidden at the back of my dad's trunk. I knew it as soon as I saw it. With those cherry stickers, it couldn't be anyone else's. Why on earth did my dad have Rosie's guitar in his car? This made no sense. I'd given it back to her today, and she left it at her friend's place. And then it dawned on me, and I felt like I was going to throw up. The way she looked at my family photos, the way she'd insulted my mom, the look of recognition on her face when she hired me and had seen my surname. The fact she studied English Lit. Oh my goodness, Rosie was having some kind of affair with my dad. I felt so overwhelmed. I couldn't deal with my dad right now, and I didn't want to hurt my mom. I knew what I had to do. I jumped on my bicycle and cycled to Rosie's apartment. I'd never been there before, but I didn't even knock. I just barged through the door, and when she saw me, she looked so shocked. I was so angry that I just started screaming at her. How could you? I saw your guitar in my dad's car, pretending to be my friend just so you could get closer to my dad? What kind of sicko are you? He's a married man. She didn't even try and deny it. She didn't even cry or try and beg for forgiveness. She just looked at me and said, "It's not my fault your dad likes me. Friends in the family, right? You liked me too, didn't you?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I didn't know what to do. My mom would be devastated, but I had to tell her, and I had to confront my dad. I told her that I never wanted to see her again, and I flung her guitar onto the ground and secretly felt super satisfied with the correct. Served her right. When I got home, my dad was sitting outside. Rosie was sick in the head. The next week in the newspapers, there was a whole story about it. Rosie had sold their story to the reporters, and now my dad would never be able to work as a professor again. Surely, it couldn't get any worse. Well, for my family, it did. Dad did lose his job, and he lost us too. Of course, Mom filed for divorce, and it's almost been a year since it all happened. And we're only just recovering now. It has been the hardest year, and the newspapers had published all the details. Their affair had been going on for more than a year, and she'd even been to our house before. There was a photo of them in our pool. No wonder she'd known where that bathroom was that time. Honestly, the whole thing just disturbs me so much, and I'm glad it's in the past. I've decided I definitely don't want to be like Rosie when I grow up. And as for Mom and me, well, we're better off without Dad. Maybe we'll forgive him one day, but right now, it's still too raw. Anyway, onwards and upwards. What did you think of my story? Crazy, huh? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.